Joe Rogan is pushing a horrendous narrative surrounding the Jamahal Hill, Alex Pereira stoppage, where Pereira brutally KO'd him in the main event at UFC 300. And I've already covered this extensively. I've already covered Jamahal Hill and his slew of excuses. And I want to skip the preamble a little bit and get right into it. You know, I'm not like other content creators, some who happen to be ex-UFC fighters who talk in circles for 15 minutes and never get to the point. But every video I've already done on this topic, I will link down in the description. I covered Joe Rogan a little bit in my last video, but I went back and watched it in its entirety. It's about a 20, 30-minute exchange. I'll link the full podcast down in the description if you want to go check it out. But Joe Rogan is detached from reality. Joe Rogan was enlisted by Jamahal Hill to push a narrative about this fight because Jamahal Hill is so salty and petty and bitter he can't accept this loss. And you know, this might be a hot take. I mean, if this is a hot take, I mean, this is a hot take I've had for many years. Joe Rogan is now a complete casual who has no idea what's going on in the MMA space. And it drives me nuts because he pushes certain narratives and a large swath of the MMA community follows right behind him, lockstep with Joe Rogan. And we're going to look at a couple different clips in this conversation, in this exchange with Max Holloway, post UFC 300. I believe this was posted a couple days ago, where he says some downright delusional things. And I'm telling you right now, I believe 100% Jamahal Hill called up all his buddies who have influence and told him, start pushing this narrative. He didn't say those exact words, but DC already admitted that, basically. I already covered that. Then you have Chael Sonnen doing it. You know, obviously Chael's going to do that for, you know, Jamahal Hill. And now you have Joe Rogan doing it. Let's just jump right into it. Here's him starting to talk about the stoppage and starting to talk about the finishing sequence between Jamahal Hill and Alex Pereira. Do me a favor, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it.
There's kind of a point there. And the point is, Jamal accidentally hits him low. He like kicks him in the hip. And Herb Dean comes in to stop it. And then Pereira does the super gangster thing. But in the meantime, Jamal has stopped and relaxed after he threw the kick. He gives him a thumbs up, like, you cool? And then Pereira does it, and then Pereira advances. And then Herb is to the left. Yeah. So it's like he can't even move too much to the left.
How does that even make any sense? He brings that up multiple times throughout this, 20-minute segment. Since when is a fighter taking into account the referee's movement before they move? It literally doesn't exist. The referee's job is to get out of the way of the action. So I don't even know. He's like, yeah, if Herb wasn't, he blames Herb Dean multiple times throughout this as well. We'll keep listening to this particular clip.
And all of a sudden he's on him and he hits him with that left hook.
Yeah.
And I think Jamal's saying, I would have never let him that close to me.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that nut shot. Yeah. And I didn't know exactly what was going on.
I didn't know exactly what was going on. I would have never let him that close to me. Well, then you should have pulled a Chael Sonnen Ultimate Fighter, Vanderlei Silva. I can't let you get close. I would have never let him get close to me if it wasn't for Herb Dean. What a piss poor excuse that is, and Rogan's here parroting it.
So Herb had stopped it. Herb is out of his field of vision. Herb is over here. So when Herb's doing this, I don't know what he said. I don't know if so let's see if we can watch it.
Because he's still.
So multiple of these things that he just said. Herb's out of his field of vision. Basically not true. Pereira advancing position during the timeout. Literally not true, and I'll show you video evidence of that. Rogan's pushing a narrative, and I swear on my life, he just talks about these things and he doesn't actually pay attention. He's in la la land. I swear he's done too many drugs. He doesn't know what he's talking about anymore, and he's a casual MMA fan. And you'll see in this very video that Joe Rogan is a complete casual. Okay? All he's good for anymore is, and speculating about injuries. Oh, that left pinky toe, I think it's compromised. And oh yeah, that groin shot didn't go low. That's all Joe Rogan's good for anymore. Let's move on to the next clip. Because in this next clip, he acts like this would have never happened if it wasn't for the cup shot. If it wasn't for Herb Dean in the break. Listen to this crap.
The fight had restarted. Yeah. The fight had restarted, but would that position have taken place if it wasn't for Jamal relaxing?
Yeah,
giving him the thumbs up.
So not his fight. So my fight, the number one thing.
And Max starts to push back here. I love this from Max Holloway because Max Holloway's kind of goaded into agreeing with Joe Rogan. But here he actually pushes back a little bit on Joe Rogan.
When I was going with Justin was just be on all the time.
Right.
Like just fucking max. Like I was just in the back telling myself mentally, physically, you need to be here every fucking second.
Right.
Of every millisecond, brother.
Which is a crazy thing.
Because you one millisecond off, lights can turn off, Max. You need to be on.
Yeah, you're in the cage with a trained killer who has brutal knockout power fighting for a title in the main event of a UFC pay-per-view. And you're going to let a guy calling timeout for a millisecond and then saying to continue, and you touch gloves and then you continue? You're going to let that be the reason you got knocked out? That's the only reason you lost? I understand these fighters are delusional, but take a loss like a man. Take a loss like a man. I'm glad Max Holloway pushed back a little bit. Now, this next clip, I mean, every single one of these, I swear these clips get worse. Every one gets worse than the next. Every single clip gets worse than the next, to the point Rogan's just making these broad statements. And we're going to get clarification on the rules. We're going to get clarification on the rules, even though I already knew them. Apparently Rogan didn't, because he gets progressively stupider the longer they talk about that. But let's get to the next clip where he's like, yeah, nobody knew what was going on during the fight. I think that was just you, Rogan, and maybe Jamahal Hill, I guess. So let's listen to this.
Like I still would have been ready, you know. Like it's protect yourself at all times, you know.
There is a weird millisecond where no one knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And when Pereira is still moving
But
forward.
There's a weird millisecond where nobody knows what's going on. What dimension is he living in? What planet is he on? He just made that up. He just made that up. Now, next, he starts looking at the actual clip. Okay, he starts looking at the clip of the finish. We're going to fast forward to that. He starts looking at the clip of the finish. And he keeps saying things that just aren't true. And again, we're going to look at the finish here in a second. We're going to look at the actual finish in slow-mo, because they're showing it in real time, which I don't understand how someone couldn't find it in slow-mo. But let's listen to what he has to say here about Pereira closing the distance during a timeout.
From the beginning, watch this. So when Jamahal lands the kick, he touches him, and then he makes, look at the distance he closes.
Yeah.
Look at the distance he closes. Now, you're going to see it in their video, but I'm going to show you it in my video in slow-mo.
Yeah, look how close right there. Yeah,
he
look how close
closed the distance, but back it up again. So you see the distance that Jamal's maintaining initially. Then he throws the kick. Now watch this. They pause.
Look how
Jamal
far,
thumbs up.
yeah.
But Pereira has closed the gap now.
Right there, yeah. Look how close he is.
He's closed the gap a lot more than Jamal probably would have let him.
He closed the distance more than Jamal probably would have let him. I hate to keep going back to this because I've covered this in other videos, but let's watch it in actual slow motion. Let's see what really happens, okay? So I believe I've already played it a little bit. The kick already happened. The low blow already happened. Let's watch how many steps that Alex Pereira takes after the nut shot. Touches his groin here. Herb's starting to come in. Herb's calling timeout. Simultaneously, Pereira's moving his foot here. It might be cut out of frame a little bit. He doesn't even take outside foot position, okay? I'll link the unlisted video down in the description if you want to go check it out, because it's slightly cut off. He doesn't even take outside foot position. That is the only step he takes, okay? Here's the timeout from Herb. So he just called timeout here. He just called timeout. Let's see how many steps Pereira takes after the timeout, because he closed the distance. Remember, Rogan told him he closed the distance. Let's see. No, there's not a single step. Jamal gives him the thumbs up. Jamal starts circling to his left. They touch gloves. Okay? And we can get to the finishing sequence, but we don't need to see that right now. But again, there's Herb calling the timeout. How many steps did Pereira take when he closed this distance? No, he took his last step as Herb's coming in. This was during the fight. During the fight, Pereira, before the timeout was called, simultaneous with the timeout, is taking that step. So let's go back to Joe Rogan now and listen to some more of what he has to say. What a clown he is. I can't believe this.
No, it's a mistake by Jamal. Protect yourself at all times. Yeah. But also, it does seem like there's a moment of confusion.
There is.
Because he does close that distance.
He does, bro.
Significantly. It's like a double step. Watch. From here to...
Where's he getting a double step at? You guys just saw it in slow-mo. He's got it on the screen. Where is it a double step? He takes one step simultaneous with the timeout that was already in motion before the timeout was called. Where's this double step? I don't understand what he's saying there.
Yeah, he
See
hops.
that?
He hops into it. Yeah, look right there, hop.
Yeah, and that, now you're in the danger zone.
Yeah.
That's fucking.
So there you go. Now you're in the danger zone. I listened to Rogan, especially for a second time now, because I went through and got these timestamps to begin with, is making me want to throw up because this guy has no idea what he's talking about. And people act like he's I feel like most of the casual fans act like Rogan's a hardcore and they're like, yeah, Rogan knows everything about MMA. And I'm sure there'll be people in the comments like Rogan knows more than you could ever know and blah, 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 so on and so forth. He called that a double step out after the timeout. He's basically saying Pereira's a cheater. Let's move on to the next clip. And I think this is basically the clip that I showed in the video from yesterday where he says Pereira took advantage of it. Listen to this.
Man, he takes advantage of that moment to close the gap.
Yeah, the left hook is so clean, bro. Look at this.
So he doesn't stop when Herb stops him. He closes when he puts Herb on. He closes the gap.
He closed the distance and.
So again, he's saying Pereira touched Herb and closed the distance while he's touching Herb. Let's see if that's true. Here's Herb coming in, calling timeout. He's touching Herb. Let's see how much distance he's closing. Doesn't take a single step. Jamal gives the thumbs up. Him and Pereira touch gloves. The finishing sequence happens right after that. Makes absolutely no sense. Let's continue on because he continues to make no sense.
And then told her to stop. Yeah. Oh, during that the
so
whole
watch
time.
It, watch it. It's this.
Yeah, right.
So he touches it. He close the distance while Jamal's legs are straight.
Yeah.
So
Jamal's legs are straight now. Oh my God, Jamal's legs are straight. Well, what happened when his legs were straight before and his lead leg was bent? Oh, wait, right after they touch gloves, he goes back to circling and his legs are bent. So because his legs are straight right now, it doesn't even make sense.
Jamal gives him the thumbs up, and Pereira had a double hop in that time.
Yeah. And Jamal didn't know.
Yeah, this is a.
He had a double hop, and then Max Holloway says, and Jamal didn't know. Well, he was in there. He didn't know.
Real moment. Now, I'm not making any excuses for Jamal. And Jamal can take a loss as good as anybody. And after the Paul Craig fight, he's like...
Yeah, Jamal can take a loss better than everyone. Go check out my last 3 videos, guys. They'll all be linked down in the description. Go check out my last 3 videos. You'll see how well Jamahal Hill, former light heavyweight champion, alleged domestic abuser, you'll see how well he can take a loss. Okay, he can't take a loss better than everyone. There was not a double hop. There was no distance closed after the timeout. These are all lies that are being parroted by Joe Rogan, who is influential over the MMA community. He's saying Pereira took advantage of this moment in time. And he even goes as far to speculate whether Herb Dean is to blame. He basically blames Herb Dean. We'll see that. I think that's in the next clip. It might not be in the next clip. The next clip actually is Max Holloway pushing back some more, which thank God for Max Holloway to have some sense here. Max Holloway starts pushing back on Joe Rogan as Joe Rogan continues to spew his absolute nonsense.
Early.
But then again, like, playing devil advocate, nothing but love for Jamal, but fuck, bro, you need to be locked in there.
You need
Who
to
the
be
fuck
locked
cares?
in.
Like you're fighting another dangerous man, a man across you that each other. You guys land one good shot, you guys both can put each other away. It's like
you need to be locked in. You're in a fight in a main event of a massive pay-per-view against a guy who's an absolute killer for a title in your return. And you're like, yeah, if it wasn't for Herb saying time out and then saying, okay, never mind, continue. And then you touch gloves and then you actually throw the first strike. We'll look at that in a second. Jamahal Hill's the one that throws the first strike, by the way. Thank you, Max Holloway, for this. Actually giving some pushback to Joe Rogan when he says nonsense. I wish he would have pushed back a little bit more, but obviously he doesn't want to make it too awkward. And, sometimes you can be swayed easily, especially when you're watching it in real time rather than slow motion, really. Now, in the next clip, Joe Rogan truly shows what a casual he is, okay? He truly shows what a casual he is. Listen to this.
Referee steps in and says stop because there's a low.
Even with him telling him stop, the protocol should have been like, okay,
separate.
Okay, whatever. Go back to the middle. Like, you pushed him against the cage, whatever, and we saw you hop. Okay, you want me to stuff? Back up a little bit. Let me go. He needs to go in the middle of them and be like, okay, fight.
Right.
You can't be like, get stopped, and then you moved off to the side. Okay, fight.
No. There does not need to be a full separation. Jamahal Hill fouled Alex Pereira. Pereira then said, I am perfectly fine. I am okay. Herb Dean says continue. They then touch gloves and continue the fight. And Jamahal Hill even throws the first shot. Take a look at this, by the way. We looked at it in previous videos, but we'll look at it really quickly again. So they touch gloves there. Pereira actually starts closing the distance. They touch gloves kind of again. Not actually a glove touch. It's more of like Jamahal trying to parry. Watch Jamal's left hand here. Watch Jamal's left hand here. Look at that. Look at Jamal's left hand. Pereira just slips out of the way. If Jamahal Hill KO'd him there, by the way, this is the left hand that Pereira chinned him with. If Jamahal Hill lands this left hand right there and sleeps Pereira, is he going to say, you know what, I don't feel right about that. I need to give Pereira a rematch because it's Herb Dean's fault. Because he stopped and then continued. Would he be saying that? So he touched gloves with this man and then threw a strike. And by the way, I don't even think I pulled a clip for this. Joe Rogan borderline acts like Pereira stepping on his foot is a dirty move as well. But I didn't want to make this video too long, so I didn't even include that. So Jamahal Hill, if he lands this left hand, you tell me. Does he say, oh yeah, I didn't really feel right about that because of the stoppage? We'll watch Jamahal Hill go down just because it's hilarious. Brutally KO'd. Even though he wasn't out, he falls back like Johnny Walker. He wakes up. So there you go. You see that strike again. So this is a guy that wasn't prepared to fight. He's throwing a left hand right at Pereira's chin. Back to the Joe Rogan podcast, okay? Because we need to look at a couple more clips. Let's skip ahead a little bit. And we're going to listen to Joe Rogan ponder the rules again. And we're going to get clarifications on the rules here in a second.
And I'm just focused on you. Like, okay, what's going on, you know?
Right. There's definitely an argument that if you're going to do that and you're going to stop a fight momentarily, even if you're going to restart it, you have to understand that the momentum is stopped. Things have changed. And if one guy does this and hops in during that time, you kind of have to step and separate them and then engage. So he does the engage. He goes off to the side. Yeah. But now the argument against that I've heard is that this happens all the times where fighters get kicked and the referee says, hold on. The fighter says, I'm fine. And then they let him keep going.
Which does happen all the time because the fighter who was fouled is in control of how much time they have to recover from that. And I swear Rogan, I don't even know if he knows what he's saying, to be honest. He's acting as if when Herb Dean called time, Pereira threw a flying knee and landed and rocked Jamahal Hill, and then Herb said, keep going, fight. Or he's acting like they're in a grappling exchange. As Herb calls time, within a second of calling time, Pereira somehow snatches the back, or Jamahal Hill snatches the back and gets a rear naked choke as the fight restarts. It makes absolutely no sense. And he goes on even more here in a second. And this is the last clip we're going to look at. And then we're actually going to look at clarification here to discuss the rules. What are the rules? What are the rules? This is a guy who's been commentating UFC for how many years now? This is a guy who claims to be a hardcore fan. He doesn't even know what weight class half the fighters are in. He doesn't come prepared at all. Half the time you can tell he doesn't even know who some of the fighters are. And for some reason, a lot of people in the MMA community worship the ground this guy walks on just because he's been around forever and he's popular. And you have to understand, I know people are going to say, Joey, you just hate Joe Rogan and this and that for whatever reason. I dislike Joe Rogan when I compare him to his previous self. If you've been a hardcore fan, if you've been watching the sport for a long time, this is not the Joe Rogan from 4, 5, 6 years ago. There is a time where I would have rioted if Rogan wasn't on the pay-per-view call. There was a time where I was disappointed whenever Rogan was not on a rare pay-per-view card, because now it's more prevalent than it was before. But occasionally Rogan would miss a pay-per-view, and I was like, damn, the fight nights weren't the same without Rogan. I wanted Rogan there for every big fight night card. I love Joe Rogan's commentary. I love this passion for the sport. It's not there anymore. He has no idea what's going on. He's clueless. He is a casual MMA fan now. He's about as smart as Brendan Schaub when it comes to MMA now, which isn't saying much. And listen to him here. Confirm that.
Stop. And that's when Jamahal did this.
Yeah.
So
Alex,
it's like, or excuse me, Alex did this. So is that up to the fighter? What are the rules?
Yeah, what are the rules?
Moment?
Yeah.
Like when the referee says stop, are the fighters allowed to say, no, I'm fine? Or are they supposed to address the referee and say, I'm fine?
Look,
and
he
then
said time.
He says time. And he puts his hand up, and now where's Herb Dean? Herb Dean moves away. Jamal does not have eyes on him.
Yeah, he's looking at him the whole time because he's not trying to get cracked.
Jamal has eyes on him when he steps out and says continue to fight. Maybe he doesn't have eyes on him now after he told you to continue to fight verbally and visually. Makes no sense.
But Alex is much closer to him.
Alex is much closer to him. He's literally closer to Jamahal Hill in their little screen. Let me make sure it's showing up on my screen. Yes, it is. He's literally closer to Jamal here. He's in Jamal's field of view. The only time he exits Jamal's field of view is when he backs away, and he's still in his peripheral vision. Okay? It appears to be. Okay? I'm not going to say concretely, but to act like Pereira's closer to Herb, so he must know what's going on more. Craziness.
To him now.
Yeah, he's much closer than nobody, but look at the angle that he takes too. Like,
okay, Max's word salad right there. Anyway, he said, "What are the rules? Is it the fighter who was fouled? Do they have to dictate how much time they get to recover from a foul? How does Rogan not know the rules? How many times do we see a foul and a fighter say to the referee, 'I'm fine,' and the action continues? We see that almost every single fight card. We see that hundreds of times per year. How does he not know this? I'm sure he's been there. He's witnessed it. But let's check in with Big John McCarthy, a guy who touts all the time, I helped write the rules. By the way, you got salty Jamahal Hill right here. That's crazy. That's crazy. Let's see what Big John McCarthy has to say on the topic, because he's a former referee. He's a guy that did help write the rules, the unified rules of MMA. He says, "It is inherently bad for the sport and unbelievably embarrassing to hear people who supposedly know the sport of MMA smear the actions of Herb Dean as if he was responsible for the knockout of Jamahal Hill at UFC 300. Let's make this as clear as possible for everyone. Herb was perfect in the actions he took, allowing Alex Pereira to call off the timeout for the kick to the groin he took and then keep the action of the fight in motion. The fighter who is fouled by a strike to the groin is in control of how much time they need to take to sufficiently recover from the foul. They have up to 5 minutes of time if they need it. Many times, fighters do not want to stop an action because they believe they have gained the momentum in a fight and do not want to give any time to their opponent. Everything Herb Dean was exactly what we would train any official to do under the same circumstances. Luckily, we had an official in the cage who understands the rules and mechanics needed to successfully manage a world title fight instead of talking heads that guess at what is right and wrong." So, in this particular instance, Big John McCarthy is regurgitating the rules. He is accurate on what the rules are, at least what I've known the rules to be for as long as I've been a fan, which has been, I've been a fan for 14, I've been watching hardcore for 14 years. That's crazy. But one thing I will say is, at this end here, luckily we had an official in the cage who understands the rules and mechanics needed to successfully manage a title fight. Hey man, Herb makes some mistakes sometimes. Okay, let's not even get into that. But Herb does make some mistakes sometimes. Like even earlier tonight, 2 low blows after the first low blow, he puts the guy who got low blowed back in a disadvantageous position, which was completely ludicrous. You know, there's been countless times Herb has made a mistake in a title fight, but in this particular case, Herb Dean is right. But you have Joe Rogan, who has one of the biggest platforms in the MMA community, screaming, Herb is wrong and Herb messed it up and he should have separated them because Pereira cheated and cut the angle and had a double hop and Herb wasn't in the field of view of Jamahal Hill. All just absolute horseshit. Again, we looked through the finish. Boys. We saw what truly happened. There is not a single step after Herb calls timeout. There is not a single step. Jamahal Hill gives the thumbs up, and then they touch gloves. If Jamahal Hill is not ready for combat at this point in time, I don't know why he's doing all that, and then he throws a left hand first. So, makes absolutely no sense. Joe Rogan has no idea what he's talking about. Luckily, Max Holloway gave him a little bit of pushback. I'm sick of this narrative. It's because Jamahal Hill can't handle a loss. That's what's going on here. Jamahal Hill cannot handle a loss. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.